charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
What you're about to see is the thread hanging from the sweater that someone starts tugging, and the next thing you know, there is no sweater.
You have conceded here the last time that you and I spoke in April, and John Sauer, who was arguing this before the Supreme Court, that some of what's alleged would be considered a private act. So that would mean that at least part of this case from Jack Smith would go to court based on what you have said before, right?
We've admitted consistently that there are acts alleged in the indictment that would constitute private conduct, but we believe that if the official conduct, the immune acts in the indictment are stripped away, that Jack Smith doesn't have a case, that this case should be dismissed on that basis. I don't think there's sufficient private conduct here to support the indictment, to support the ongoing prosecution. And that's what we're going to be litigating in front of the district court now.
Even just the false slates of electors, you don't think that would constitute enough for a trial?
That is a Trump lawyer defending Trump's actions, trying to get states to change the will and the votes of Americans in a democracy. So, no big deal.
Well, we would say alternate slates of electors. And as we argued before the Supreme Court, alternate slates of electors have been a method used by previous presidents, most notably Ulysses S. Grant.
Alternate slates of electors? You mean like this?
Alternative facts.
The Electoral College isn't a college. No frat parties, no binge drinking.
We drank beer, my friends and I, the boys and girls. Yes, we drank beer. I liked beer, still like beer.
In fact, nowhere in the Constitution is it referred to as a college. But this part is true. The Electoral College was created to protect racism and slavery, as opposed to a straight-up Democratic vote, which would have hurt the slave-owning South. The Electoral College gave weighted political power to the southern states, thus slowing the progress of African Americans throughout the South. I know this because the Founding Fathers said it out loud. Shocker. Slave-owning patriots rigged the system. So the South's built-in advantage, the bonus electoral votes they got from having slaves while not having to let them vote, made the difference in elections in the United States for the first 100 years.
To ensure the integrity of prior elections. So we believe the assembly of those alternate slates of electors was an official act of the presidency. That's what we argued before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has reserved that issue for determination by the district court, and we'll see how arguments fall in front of the district court.
Yeah, we've walked through those historical references here before. None of them compare to what we saw in 2020 with the fake slates of electors.
And just so we're clear, when you vote in the fall, you're not voting for Biden or Trump. You're voting for an elector. The states will tally the individual votes, and the winner gets all the electoral votes in the national election. The number of electoral votes a state gets, it depends on their population. Now, while the Constitution doesn't require electors to vote for the candidate chosen by their state's popular vote, most states do. The rare elector who votes for someone else may be fined or disqualified or replaced by a substitute elector or maybe even prosecuted. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled electors are not free agents. They are to vote for the candidate whom the state's voters have chosen. Whoever gets 270 wins, in theory.
The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday ruled that presidents have, quote, absolute immunity from criminal prosecution over what the justices said were, quote, official acts, in a critical case over whether Donald Trump can be charged for allegedly plotting to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Justice Sonia Sotomayor excoriated the majority decision in a dissent, writing, quote, today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency.
So here's what Trump wanted to do. Biden won the 2020 election. On January 6th, Pence held the perfunctory and mostly symbolic counting of the electoral votes. But Diaper Donnie pushed Pence to accept fake electors from states where Biden had won the popular vote, who would then vote for Trump and not Biden. It's illegal. It's a fraud. It's a serious crime.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done.
Trump worked with Republicans in these states to create fake electors and then tried to substitute the fake electors who would then vote for tiny fingers over the real electors voted by the people. But now the Supreme Court has ruled that core presidential powers are immune from criminal prosecution, official acts, in other words. So this decision returns Trump's federal election interference case back to a lower court to decide whether what Trump did was an official act.
That is crazy.
Okay, while a fake set of electors isn't as sexy as SEAL Team 6 hunting down Nancy Pelosi,
and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts?
The idea that a president could plot to invalidate the results of an election, I mean, come on. Trump said it out loud.
I just want to find 11,000 votes
The idea that these attempts are official acts is the string hanging from the sweater, and the Supreme Court is pulling it.
Well, Donald Trump, Peter Baker, is expressing support for holding televised military tribunals against former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
Yeah, I think we should take Donald Trump seriously. I think what we learned in his first term was that he obviously likes to say a lot of things that are provocative that he may not follow up on. And some of the things he says that were provocative that he didn't follow up on were only because he was surrounded at the time by more establishment Republicans or figures, military officers and so forth.
Look, it was obviously a very shocking and troubling remark for the president to suggest that we shoot protesters, we shoot Americans.
The case of Republicans like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are notable in that, along with Pence and Mitch McConnell, Trump is calling their acts treasonous, which means Trump's boy band of little incels jump right on board and the death threats start flooding in.
The only president in American history who attempted to overturn an election, who attempted to seize power, to stay in power after he had lost. And the reason that we didn't have a much more serious crisis was because there were people around him who stopped him, because there were people around the country, state officials, for example, who stopped him, who did not yield to the pressure that he put on them to change votes from Biden to Trump. We won't have that safeguard again. And he's so dangerous. If you have a president who is unwilling to abide by the rulings of the courts, who's unwilling to uphold the Constitution, then there are no guardrails who can stop him.
And what Trump is threatening is greater than a simple prosecution. Trump is demanding that the First Amendment, specifically designed to protect this speech, be cast aside as un-American. Trump invoked televised military tribunals and is calling for the jailing of President Biden, Kamala Harris, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and Mike Pence.
I know a lot of Republicans want retribution. They want to do that. We're going to see what happens.
It's a terrible, terrible path that they're leading us to. And it's very possible that it's going to have to happen to them.
Revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified.
The question of what is an official act, it's dangerous, because once you decide that an official act allows Trump to attack opponents, prohibit citizens' votes from counting, and attack the media, what's left? And the craziest part of this entire scenario is they chose this guy as their dictator? I mean, what vice does he not possess? A spray-tanned, obese, adulterous sex offender who's ripped off a charity for kids with cancer, created a fake university that ripped off students, has been fined by a Republican Justice Department for discriminatory housing, and who possesses none of the courage and manhood one needs in order to accept a defeat. And did I mention lying?
One thing I can promise you this: I will always tell you the truth.
Today, Trump threatens the careers and lives of people who have protected the ideals and principles in our Constitution. So what did I miss? Who are these people that adore this guy?
Do you feel like Donald Trump is in some way God's chosen one as a candidate?
I do. I think he's been sent from above.
Trump is a throwback, not to the 50s, but the Flintstones. He's a mentally ill sociopath, a cognitively declining stagnant puddle, a weathered skin tag. And the Supreme Court wants to make him a king. Or not, we shall see. Meanwhile, remember that sweater? Well, there is no more sweater.
Who's with me?
Hi, what's up?
This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, right.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donald.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.